The Southern California Collegiate Invitational is a college chess tournament that happens every year at USC. This is the story of how I got second place at the tournament as just a high schooler, and no one suspected a thing.
In the first round, I got paired against a 1200 rated girl from USC, and I opened with f4, the bird's opening. She responded with d5, and I played c4, the Sturm Gambit. This is a little weapon that I've been experimenting with. The engine doesn't really like it, but it's great for surprise value, and can usually get opponents out of theory really early, which is definitely the case here, as my opponent took 2 minutes before playing c6. c6 is definitely a playable move, but not anything to fight for an advantage. Knight f3 developing, and bishop to g4 putting pressure. I just play a pretty typical setup for the Sturm Gambit positions instead of the better knight e5 here. Play e3. We continue to develop normally for a few moves until she plays bishop to b4, which I thought was a little bit weird, so I played knight a3 with the idea of knight to c2, rerouting and pushing the bishop back. a3 would have been a better version of this idea here, and I would develop the knight later, but she played d takes c4, which wasn't great, because the knight on a3 now gets the good central square of c4. And then it also defends this d2 pawn here, making it so that all of the attacks aren't really going to do anything for a while. So she plays knight b to d7, and we play some more normal moves before I play this a3 idea, now pushing the bishop back. Bishop to c5 is kind of just a waste of time, I think, because I can play b4, taking more space and pushing the bishop back again. She goes to e7, and my position looks pretty comfortable with queenside space, bishop on b2, and some good dark square control right here. And then I put the knight firmly into the center of the board here. This looks super natural to me, but apparently the engine wanted knight to a5 instead, attacking the b7 pawn. And then once the rook moves to defend it, then the knight will come back to b3 and reroute towards the center here. Which, honestly, that's a little bit above my pay grade. So I just played knight c to e5, which was just the normal move here. She took my bishop on f3, and I have a few things that I can take back with here. I could take back with the rook, the bishop, the pawn, the knight, although that moves backwards, so there's really no point in doing that. But I decided to take with the rook and to get it active. So I'm getting this cannon up here about to attack the black king. And so the black king's in a little bit of trouble. So sensing that, she plays a5. Taking on a5 is obviously bad since it just activates the rook. And then the rook and bishop start staring at my pawn, and it gets a little bit annoying here for me. And I also can't do anything else because she's threatening to take the pawn because she has 2 pieces on it, and I only have this 1 pawn defending. So I played b5 here, which I thought was a pretty good move. She takes, I take back with the bishop, then she moves her knight to the center, which isn't great. I'm just going to start attacking here. I played rook to g3, which actually isn't the best. The computer wanted either g4 or f5 here, which are both like pawn storm ideas, which makes a lot more sense. But g3 is still good. She plays queen to b6, and this is skewering my 2 bishops, it looks like. But they're not actually skewered because I can just play a4 and defend it. But look at this. The queen pins this pawn to the king. So, if she wanted to, she could play knight takes f4. But this move is actually a terrible mistake because I have knight to d7. Brilliant move. And what this would do is it forks the queen and the knight on f6. She can't defend both of them at the same time, so she tries to take the knight, relying on the fact that this bishop is pinned. Right? I obviously can't take here because then I'm just down a piece. So instead, once she takes with the knight, I can play rook takes g7 check, and the cannon that I put there is now coming alive, firing on all cylinders towards this king. if the king moves to like h8, which is basically the only move, I just play queen to c2 and threaten mate here. And I'm definitely winning material back here, and I'm going to win this game. But sadly, she didn't play that. Instead, she played g6, trying to put up a shield against my king, or against her king. And so I played bishop to d4, and she played queen back. Here, I thought, okay, what pieces aren't participating in the attack? This bishop and this rook. So I tried to reroute my bishop into the game. But what I missed here was, you know how that knight could take that pawn earlier? It can do that again, because the pawn is overloaded. It's looking at both this bishop and this pawn. So once she takes with the knight, I can't take back because she could take this bishop with check. And this looks really bad. So instead, I kind of kicked myself in the butt here, and then I played bishop to c2. Which isn't great, but it's not bad. I'm not totally losing yet. She played knight to h5, and I played rook over. She played knight back to g7. I kind of thought this knight maneuver was a waste of time, because I just get some more moves to improve my position and get ready to attack. Played queen f3, and then she moves knight to f5. Yep, a whole waste of time, because right here, I just take with the bishop. The computer gives me a great move, because normally trading bishop for knight isn't a great idea. But here, that knight just spent 1, 2, 3 moves hopping around. And my bishop isn't really participating in the attack, because all these pawns are on light squares. So it's actually a pretty good idea for me to trade. Once she takes back, I take this hanging pawn on b7. That's really all there is to it. Now material's equal, and I'm feeling really good, honestly. Like, the position just looks overall pretty good for me. I'm going to have an attack, and everything's going right. Then I played rook to g3, and I blundered immediately because I missed knight here, forking my rook and the d2 pawn. And the best thing here would be to just give up an exchange, which is really sad because, like, I liked my position. I had a good attack coming, and everything was going to go great. But she actually missed it, and instead she played rook to b4. What I didn't tell you was that the time control for this game was 30 minutes plus 0. So at this point, she was at like 3 minutes. And so she started trying to play pretty fast in order to keep up with that. And so she played rook to b4, which wasn't really a good move. And I missed the fork again, and I played bishop to c3. But since I'm attacking the rook here, she thought I have to move the rook. So she moves the rook to b3 and misses the fork again. This is crazy. So then I played queen takes f5, which was a hanging pawn because this pawn is pinned to the king. And now this fork doesn't work anymore because the knight doesn't have an anchor on f5. So I would just take that with the queen. Pretty simple. So anyway, here she plays rook f to b8. I don't know, not a great move. And so I thought, okay, I'll just take the seemingly free pawn on a5. And then, since she's still down on time, she immediately blunders the queen on d2. And she forgot bishops can move backwards. And then she resigned. The stupid thing is, though, that here, black actually has the move king to f8. This is the winning move, king to f8, because now my knight on e5 and my queen on f5 are a little bit loose, and they're under pressure and everything. So the queen, if I move it, like, say, to f4, is rook check, rook takes check here, and then she has this. And the best thing to do here with white is to sack the bishop on a5, which is just crazy.
So I won my first round. Overall, it was a pretty good game. I had a few tactical misses, but I'm pretty proud of it. In the next round, I got paired against an international master, and you'll never guess what happens. But that's for the next video. See you next time!